It is imperative that crypto industry partakes in its own self-regulation before the government intervenes and screws it up. Can you provide a roadmap of what needs to be done that exposes the dark players and through transparency brings the cream to the top? So this is good. That's why we focus on looking at methods of decentralization. We built the Crypto Compendium in early 2021 to really focus on those assets, those tokens that have the least amount of regulatory risk, the least amount of inflation, the least amount of decentralization, the least amount of centralization, etc. So the criteria for a proper framework, in our view, basically we need a digital currencies framework to regulate crypto, which treats itself as a new financial asset that it is. We keep trying to put crypto in a box and haphazardly apply judgment without a clear legal framework. And as an industry, we can design such a framework. A lot of people in the industry are making proposals, and they're working well with people in Congress as well. Now, the objective of regulation is supposed to be about ensuring and promoting fair and ethical business practices and protecting customers. And here are a couple of things that we think should be hit on. 1, fight fraud without infringing on the privacy of users. 2, protect consumers through investment in education rather than limiting consumers' choices and freedoms. For example, accredited investors, etc. That is just a nonsense rule. 3, encourage cryptos to be used as payments rather than telling people what or how they should be used. And 4, encourage innovations rather than stifling it. But there's more. So a framework that achieves this is basically 1, create the categorization that is in line with the premise of a blockchain. And as an industry, as I mentioned before, we are stronger together than fighting with each other. And we need to come together and design a digital asset categorization standard. And this can be used to self-regulate and to allow regulators to build the regulatory framework around it. And this standard should be built in line with the ideals of blockchains like Bitcoin, such as openness, transparency, permissionless, and protection of individual privacy and freedom. Not all the other nonsense that happens around that. Number 2, assets classified under the digital assets framework will have a fully public blockchain and fully public open source code. And this allows the industry to distinguish between open and legitimate projects and shady projects, like you mentioned, the kind of gray, dark area that pass itself off as a blockchain for opportunism. In addition, number 3, any exchanges operating in the space should do proof of reserves in line with the ideas of blockchain. Any exchange that operates in the space should also adhere to the principles of the blockchain. And we've seen enough to learn that how critical that is. Number 4, sorry. Any lending, borrowing, operating in the space should do proof of reserves, same as lending, borrowing platform, and they should make the reserves public when operating in the blockchain space. 5, all reserves-based coins in the space should have proof of reserve on the hard assets that backs the coins. Stable coins like Tether, pegged coins like Wrapped Bitcoin should also have proof of reserves to ensure that these assets and their tokens exist and are securely locked. And we know for a fact that a lot of the wrap stuff out there isn't fully backed. 6, encourage self-custody and education. And lastly, encourage users to self-custody and encourage more education around self-custody. This is the baseline for the industry. We'll talk more about that in the next question after this in terms of cold storage best practices. But one note that came in from Jesse Powell from Kraken, former CEO of Kraken, that basically he talked, there was Tree of Alpha, breaking news, Binance releases proof of reserve system. And Jesse says, I'm sorry, but no, this is not a proof of reserve. This is either ignorance or intentional misrepresentation. The Merkle tree is just a hand-wavy BS without an auditor to make sure you didn't include accounts with negative balances. The statement of assets is pointless without liabilities. What he's saying basically here is, if there's a hash record of Bitcoin in the balance sheet, it's okay, but what's the point? The whole point of this is to understand whether or not the exchange has more crypto in its custody than it owes its clients. It's that simple. Putting a hash and row ID is worthless without everything else that comes along with it. So